All right, y'all. Welcome to Tech in Motion. It's been a minute, but really excited. I'm Lindsay Lewis. I'm the Executive Director of Marketing at Tech in Motion and Motion Recruitment. So I've been here for almost 11 years in this organization and helped start the Tech in Motion chapter in Dallas about 8 years ago. So I'm really excited to see some familiar faces and some brand new ones in here. So thank you for coming out tonight. Also, a warm welcome to anybody that is watching virtually as well. So I could go into how much we've changed since we started with Tech in Motion. Since the last event here in Dallas, we have thousands, hundreds of thousands more members in the Tech in Motion community. And we've done dozens of virtual events, which we didn't used to do. We have launched hybrid events, or I could tell you guys that it's a little spoiler about the Tierney Awards. They're coming back, actually. Yeah. And we took a little hiatus this year, but what we will be doing is little revamps for the next year. So that hasn't been announced yet, but you guys are getting a little forward information. Yeah. Instead, Tech in Motion is based off of, connect, learn, meet, innovate, and IT trends. Let's talk about those, right? So let's get back to our roots, and I think we're really excited to do that.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. We're so excited to have you all here tonight. It's been so nice connecting with you, and I'm looking forward to hearing this awesome panel discussion from Dallas's top tech leaders. They have some really great conversation planned for us on employment trends and leadership advice taking us into 2024. So I am pleased to introduce from Motion Recruitment, we have Matt and Corey, and they're going to share a little bit more on tech insights for 2024.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming out on this fine February. 70 degrees today? February? Gotta love it. Gotta love Texas. My name's Corey. I head up our office here for Motion Recruitment Dallas. For those that don't know about Motion, we're one of the U.S.'s largest IT staffing firms, recently named number 15 by SIA. We've got offices here, Canada, and also proud creators of Tech in Motion, which, from when I started back in 2015, felt like an office full of pizza and beer and maybe 30 or 40 people. And now look at us grow. Been great. But if you're at all interested in looking to take next steps in your tech career, you're a hiring manager struggling to fill your roles, or just a person interested in tech in general, a good place to be. Can head over to a career booth, talk to any of us. We are happy to help out and assist. We've also got some great swag. If I saw some bottle openers around, hopefully you guys got those. We will be doing some raffle items too, and we'll announce those shortly. With all that out of the way, it's time to talk about the tech industry in 2024. As many of you know, 2023 wasn't maybe as much as we would have liked, but we're on the come up. We're rebounding. We're going to talk about the health of the overall tech marketplace. Matt, take it away.
Thank you, Corey. My name is Matt Harrington with Motion. Yes, 2023, there were some headwinds for sure, and it was magnified because 2022 was a record year in many cases in the technology space for employment. So 2023 was tough, and there's a lot of questions around 2024, which is why we assembled this panel today to see if we can get some of our questions answered. For context, every layoff that happened in 2023, for every layoff, there were 11 people hired in 2021 and 2022. So if it felt like 2023 was slower, it was for sure. Tech unemployment rates remain well below the national average of 2.3%, and specific sectors are virtually zero unemployment even today, areas like cybersecurity and AI. But along with that, the jobs report just came out as well, and those numbers looked really good, but there's still a lot of people in tech frustrated and questioning that jobs report, and I'm trying to come to us for answers, and we're searching for answers as well. So hopefully we can get more insights from our panel. While tech figures are getting a grasp grasp about how to use advancing technologies. And every tech sector surveyed, at least 50% of hiring managers still say they struggle to hire around their AI needs. So it's interesting as well, and we'll get some insights on that. And there's still a large demand for skilled IT workers in the market. Attracting and developing top talent remains a top challenge in 2024. And we'd like to learn how some leaders in IT feel about that and how they plan to address that. According to a poll of C-suite executives, currently there are over 392,000 active job postings for tech occupations. Many of you would say, where are those? I would love to get to those. So we're going to dive in and explore that today. So how can tech leaders get the most out of their teams while keeping morale high? What are going to be the trends we'll be talking about through 2024 and going into 2025? And then the elephant in the room is AI, and how does that play into all of this? So to answer these questions and a whole lot more, we've assembled this great panel. Can't wait to dive in, starting with our fantastic moderator. He is the co-host of the Wages of Cybercrime podcast and formerly the Tech Fugitives podcast, which I loved as well. Mr. Mark Tierney. Mark?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Matt. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Everybody just come sit down. Right. Hi, everybody. So, yeah, I'm Mark Tierney. I am host of the Wages of Cybercrime podcast. We're going to be dropping our first episodes this month, so I'm super excited about it. I'm going to be your cruise director today for this panel discussion. It's casual, right? Everybody relax, have a good time. If you need to stretch, you can get in the aisle. It's all good. We'll have a good time. All right. First, to get us kicked off before I introduce the panel, we live in interesting times. Who knows the etymology of that phrase? Anybody? Everybody? Who's heard that term before? Right? Okay. All right, so it's generally considered a Chinese blessing or curse, said both ways. And but the truth is that no one can find anything or any root of it from China at all. In fact, the closest thing from China, I did a little research on it, was better to be a dog in times of tranquility than a human in times of chaos. So there you go. There's the etymology of that term. Interesting times. Innovative times. We live in innovative times for sure. And when I think of innovation, I think of chaos. And it seems that every innovation brings the kind of chaos that creates what I refer to a lot as troughs of despair, business and technical, right? And we've got to somehow, every time a new innovation comes out, we've got to figure out how to bridge all that stuff, right? And we do that through leadership, strategy, right? Good planning, and we're gonna kind of use this panel and sort through some of that stuff. And I've got some great people here to help me, and I'm gonna let them introduce themselves. Steph, we'll start with you.
I am Stephanie Rollis. I'm the Chief of Staff for our North America Division product team at Ericsson. Someone asked me earlier, like the old Sony Ericsson flip phones. No, we build 5G networks. And I handle our strategy execution as well as organizational dimensioning.
John.
Hello. Hi. My name is John Rosenbaum. I am Chief Information Officer for Motion Recruitment Partners. Just to give you all a little bit of perspective, I've been in technology leadership for about 10 to 15 years, but focused in the services industry. So when you hear me talking about strategy or technology, I just want you to know it's coming from a place of professional services and kind of what that looks like. It's a little bit different than 5G networks.
Ben.
Yep. Hi, I'm Ben Pyle. So I'm a Chief Technology Officer at Curantis Solutions. We build electronic health records for the hospice and palliative care space. So I'm going to come at it from a software delivery side and product delivery, so which will be my background.
All right, so we're going to jump right into it, and we're going to start with strategy, right? So John, I'm going to start with you. Top IT strategies that your team's focusing on right now.
Yeah. I think one thing I've learned in my career is that strategy is not a one-size-fits-all sort of thing. So if I sit here and told you, here's our strategy, I think it'd be really hard for each one of you to take that away and like use that immediately in the wide array of companies that you're in. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about how we think about our strategy, and maybe that will help give you a framework a bit to think about the strategies in the different companies and businesses you're in. And so, has anybody ever heard like the Gartner run, grow, transform sort of model? And so that's one way we think about our strategy too. So we have an array or portfolio of things that we're working on, obviously around data, maturing our legacy technologies, optimizing our business processes. But we always are thinking about what initiatives and projects do we have that we have to do necessary just to run the business and keep the lights on? Because those are important. If you neglect that, things slow down. What are some of the things we're doing to grow the business? And so this is projects and initiatives that help us be more efficient. We're going to talk a little bit about AI later, and it's using some of that to kind of help automate a lot of the processes and help us do more with the resources we have. And then the third place we go is around transformation. So what are we doing to transform our industry? What are we doing to transform our company? What are we doing to get new revenue, new market share that we're not having before? So that's one way we're thinking about it.
So, Steph, I'm going to go to you next. So, tell us a little bit about strategic objectives at Ericsson. What's top of mind for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, we have, obviously our strategy is always to make our wireless customers succeed, have the best performing networks. But ingrained in that, I would say, is two overarching themes that need to run through everything we do, which is number one, never changes, is cybersecurity. I'm not just saying that to suck up to you.
Good play, well played.
The threat landscape is constantly evolving, and we always need to make sure that we have robust systems in place to ensure network security. So that's number one. And number two is digital evolution that you just touched on a bit. And I know that's a bit of a buzzword. So what I mean by that is really using these emerging technologies such as AI to really transform the way we make informed decisions and automate our processes, not just our networks, but the processes we use to run our businesses.
Awesome. Ben.
Yeah, so for this year, we're really focused on growth and revenue growth and customer acquisition. 2020, 2021, everybody remembers the pandemic. Healthcare was hit really, really difficult, especially in the hospice sector. With staffing and all the challenges that we had. And so Curantis did a really smart thing. They leaned into technology. We leaned into cloud capabilities. We hired a lot during COVID. So we spent a lot of time building and adding to our platform. And this year's really big focus for data is where we're headed, specifically how we can use AI and how we can use Amazon tooling to make the most of that data. And not necessarily from purely analytics, but how can we enhance user workflow, patient experience, as well as optimization. So those are kind of our big bets strategically that we're going to make this year.
Yes. How are we doing here? All right, very good. So I'm going to stick with you, Ben.
Yeah.
Specific projects that are exciting and in that space to really hammer home, really follow through on these strategic initiatives. What do you got?
Yeah, so two really big projects for us. So one of them is rolling out one of our billing systems. So in our field, billing and software is usually pretty antiquated, right? So things happen in batch, they happen in arrears. The workflow is disconnected between patient and the biller. And so what we decided to do was lean heavily into event-driven billing system. And so our system operates in real time. We've picked up some customers on it. We've added some feedback. We've picked up some patents as well. And so like I said, we're really going to lean into that billing project and how we can do that this year. On top of that, it's going to be our data strategy and how can we leverage the data assets that we've picked up from that billing system as well as patient experience to drive new insights. And focus specifically on workflow efficiencies and things that can make the patient experience better.
So, John, I always go back to things like that I feel like have been important to the business in the past: time to market, user experience. Are you feeling that? Are you seeing that? And what strategic objectives or specific projects, rather, are you guys working on that, yeah.
Yeah, it's once again, we're always thinking about like what's the business able to handle and what's it demanding from technology, and then what really are we actually able as a technology team to provide? Because oftentimes there are things that some of the people at the back of this room want from us as a technology team that we don't yet have the maturity or the capabilities to provide. A couple of things that we're focused on though right now, and we're talking a little about AI here as an industry, but a couple of the things that we're focused on now is just cleaning up our data. So we're a company that's grown rapidly over time, and our data's been siloed in a bunch of different systems. There's duplicates, there's dirty data. We can't do anything with that data until it's cleaned up. And so it's not glamorous, but slowing down to take a look at the data quality, removing duplicates from the systems, and making sure we know how to liberate that data so we can do things with it is a big initiative for us. We believe that if we spend the time doing that, it's going to allow us to mature and be able to meet some of the needs and some of the things the business is demanding that will help them deliver better for their clients. I think just a second thing that we're relying on is we have some great software partners that we count on to help deliver some of our products, our services. And embedded within those products are some new tools around generative AI, how we do sourcing and matching. So if you come to us and you're like, I really am interested in a job, how can we match you up to a great job? We are investing in those tools and investigating those different types of technologies right now.
All right, so Steph, I want to go to you on the specific initiatives that you're doing, and I want to go back to the data thing in just a minute. But let me ask you to talk about specific strategic initiatives that you're working on right now.
So we're undergoing a huge transformation in the wireless space from what you know as traditional built networks to essentially what will become the largest distributed cloud network in the world. We're moving to cloudification in terms of wireless, and that makes the complexity of networks and running them like nothing we've ever known. So using automation, and not necessarily AI, before we get to AI, we need to automate those manual processes, increasing efficiency across everything we do in the business, across how we run our networks. So I think our specific project right now is cloudification of networks and automating as many processes as we can so that we can handle the complexity that's going to come with a cloud distributed network.
So I want to go back to this data issue. I've spoken to several people. My background's mostly in the fintech side. Recently spoke to a CIO of a very large bank, and I asked him about, what are you doing with AI? He's like, nothing. Not really. And the reason why is the point you brought up, John, this point of our data's a mess, and until we get that fixed, we can't do anything. So, Ben, are you've got hot sports opinions on data. Tell us about it.
So we created our own problem in some regards, and so think about
Hasn't everybody? I mean, that's the problem, right? I mean, we end up creating these silos of data for all the right reasons, right? We're trying to be agile, we're trying to do things time to market, but we didn't do it with that broader perspective.
So who in here has heard of microservices? So if you know microservices, you know what you do. You isolate and you block off and build these boundaries around these APIs and these systems, right? So you do that so that you can scale independently, deploy independently. You can have teams working on their own axes and all these great, wonderful things. But you know what you create whenever you do that? You create a bunch of data silos. So instead, Curantis, I don't have 20 divisions, or however many divisions Ericsson has, right, that creates these silos. My product and engineering teams have created these data silos. So what we ended up having to do was then reunify all of that data. So we purposely split it up, and then we spent the last 18 months purposely bringing it back together. And then going along the lines of how do we make sure it's clean, how do we make sure it's quantified, how do we make sure it's been governed correctly. We're leaning into some of the Amazon tooling that gives us some comfort and using software to help us do that. But it's a challenge, right? And there's not really a silver bullet that you can use to fix that.
Who else is test? All right. Who else is feeling this in the room? This data issue. Would you say it's if you think the data issue with AI is like the number one issue you got to deal with? Let me see. Show of hands. Significant. If it's not number one, it's like a top 5. Show of hands. Again, yeah. So there you go. Right.
Well, I mean, especially in healthcare too, right? Then there's security that's wrapped around it, because for every piece of patient information that we collect, that's a target for somebody to want to go after. So, I mean, there's so many processes around timing, quality, codification of the data. How are you going to take care of it in motion? How are you going to take care of it in rest? And it almost creates a separate product line in our standpoint that we're having to manage and take care of.
No?
Test.
It's the data.
Test. Okay. That's the voice. That's the voice one. All right. So we're on the AI kick. Let's keep going. I think the first thing I want to talk about here is the personnel side, talent development. I don't know who wants to take this first, but it's such an important topic. Do you have an opinion on it? You want
On talent development?
Yeah, for AI specifically.
Not necessarily on AI specifically, in technology in general. Apologize to my colleagues in the crowd because they hear this every single week, is the half-life of technical skills is 18 months. So if you're not training constantly, then in 18 months from now, you are less valuable, less effective than you used to be. So I think a big focus for our company is fostering a culture of continuous learning. And what that means is creating the space, giving the resources, giving the practical experience after you give that training for people to continuously upskill. Otherwise, you have a fast aging in terms of training culture for your company of it's not going to be ready for the future. So I'm not sure if that addresses the AI specifically.
Well, no, it's a good general answer. So I appreciate that. Go ahead, Ben.
So I think back to when I started in the 90s, and culture was not embracing learning on the job, right? You had to acquire skills on your own. So, I mean, there was all kinds of ways you go about doing that. I think as leaders, our responsibility is to create a culture that supports exactly what Steph was talking about. Because, I mean, you've only got so many hours in a week. You've only got so many user stories you can accomplish. You've only got so many meetings you can accomplish. But yet I want you to now understand skills and things that are going to atrophy in 18 months. Right, as a leader, I've got some level of responsibility for creating that environment. And Curantis, we're not doing a ton of generative AI, but we have a lot of traditional AI, right? Predictive, suggestive analytics, data classification, and we kind of mix and match. So we lean heavily. Some of the skills that are being used now, it's almost easier to find them coming out of college because they're coming out of this place of continual learning. So anybody that's in the room that's in college or coming out, I know it's a tough market. But I would encourage you that those skills that you're learning aren't necessarily skills that people that are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s that are cranking out user stories and features every week are picking up on the side.
60s.
I wasn't going there. I was keeping it under 60.
One of the things we bump into is there's no lack of tools and technologies out there that are AI enabled, or for us, we think about AI in sourcing and matching, so helping people find jobs. Generative, so if we want to send out a message to a lot of people about a particular role, being able to generate what that email or that text message, or be able to have a conversation to help just make sure somebody's interested. Or then directive for us, which would be, hey, here's the next action you need to take. There's plenty of tools out there for us that can plug into our existing tech stack to enable that. Where we really have to focus is our technology team's understanding of the business. And so every day there's a new tool out there that we could use, but then really understanding where are the pain points in our business, in our workflow, in our value chain that we can apply this to. and so for a little bit of it, it is this humility of you have to get out there and ask questions. You have to get out there and get closer to what the product is that we're actually selling and get out from behind really just knowing the technology. Because at the end of the day, the technology is there to help drive some value, to help drive some revenue. And if you don't know how our company creates that, then you're already behind.
So my reaction to some of this isn't just some new feature. When we're talking about AI, and again, Ben, I know you're an agile person, but so I think this will resonate with you. You bring in something fundamentally new, right? It's not like, hey, throw somebody a Scrum book or Kanban book, go learn it, and then we'll transform our company. Like it doesn't work like that, right? And so AI talent, from my perspective, how we think about AI is fundamentally different, right? And so as organizations, don't we need to stop, take a step back, think about how we're going to develop talent differently and why? Anybody?
Yeah, no, and I would kind of look at it even one step further, looking backwards, is that understand what your use cases are in your environment, right? So for us, like as a clinician, generative AI is all over healthcare. It's not going to be well received at the moment in my space, so it would make no sense for me to start hiring and bringing in talent and upskilling people on a skill set that's not going to be consumable by my customer base, right? So pay attention to kind of what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish with that capability, right? And then you can then figure out what skills that you need to go upskill or acquire. If I can pivot just for a second, on the hiring side, because you mentioned hiring, as a hiring manager, one thing that I do see a lot of is the misuse of AI. I see a lot of, this may sound strange, I feel like at this day and age, intimacy in the hiring process is more important than quantity, right? The quality thing is super important right now. And you can sniff, if you've seen enough of them, AI-generated resumes, cover letters, email notifications. Like you're going in my inbox almost instantly if you've got one of those auto-generated AI pictures, right? Because you know what they look like. But if I get a well-crafted, almost old-school style approach, like, hey, I'm interested in because of, that intimacy is appreciated by hiring folks.
Anything further on the development of talent?
We're not, for us, it's not about building tools using this new AI technology. It's about applying it to the work we're doing, to the value we're trying to bring. And so just giving people space to learn and try new things. We're a very achievement-oriented world. And so when things don't work, we tend to put our heads down, but creating a culture where you can try a new tool in a specific way that may or may not work is important, and it gives people space to try, fail, learn, grow.
And I think it's really important to provide practical experience. You can get out of school and have a PhD in AI. I met several of you out here today. Understanding and getting the opportunity to see how that impacts a business, how that interacts with hardware in a network, how that brings your customers value. I think getting in there and not being so specialized, I think we're seeing a switch towards end-to-end engineers, if you were, or end-to-end specialists, rather than very specialized focus areas. It's great to come out with that, but then give people the opportunity to apply that and grow with their career and where they can apply it in the business.
I do love that development of more of a product model in the enterprise. We're seeing that, front to back. How are we delivering as a team? And Agile's played a huge role in that.
Yeah, it's gotta have a purpose, right? And it does. It's gotta have a specific reason, because none of these skills are cheap to train, cheap to retain, and cheap to continue to build upon. And so I don't even know that some of them are always transferable. The basic principles, right? So if I go back to my basic computer science, a lot of those things have served me well throughout the last 25 years. But I've picked up things like Corba and middleware and other stuff that has no value at this point. One guy remembers Corba, so it doesn't mean anything.
I think he gets a special gift for you.
Yeah, woo! It doesn't mean anything anymore, and so I would caution, like the hot trend or tool of today without a solid understanding of the fundamentals will be not as valuable to you in 5 years. Fundamentals and principles. There's a reason that some of those books are written in they're hardbound, because they're still useful now as they were 30 years ago.
Yeah, you talked about sort of a more end-to-end understanding also. I know the engineers on our team that are the most valuable, they understand how what they build and what they're focused on impacts the entire value chain of the business, the whole product and service that we deliver. Those are the ones that end up leading teams or helping us build new products. And so, I can't stress just understanding wherever you are right now, whatever company you're with, whatever you're building, being able to understand how we really make money and what really drives value makes a huge difference from engineering.
Can those skills and can those capabilities make us faster and more efficient, right? Like there's a reason we're not still cutting with handsaws, right? There's tools to make that go faster, and if they weren't useful, we wouldn't use them. Same thing with AI, I think.
And we talked, when we touched on strategy earlier, once again, that a lot of times there's things that are in the ideas of our engineers that our business isn't ready to adopt. And so being able to sort of have some sensitivity to what's the business able to handle right now, it can be frustrating to somebody who wants to build, who has a great idea and wants to release something that's a great new feature. But understanding, hey, the business can't handle that right now. We've already given them enough change.
And why not? What's in the way? What's the wall?
Yeah. Like, what's the wall that's keeping that?
What's the wall that's in the way of business to understand? How many times do you have very innovative engineer, architect, or whatever says we need to do X, and they can't, and it would help a business issue. What advice are we giving to those people to help carry forward an excellent idea?
It depends. And so I think if you've got one of those ideas, first and foremost, understand, to your point, that you said over, I agree 100%, what impact is it going to have on business? Is it going to be generating revenue? Is it going to be reducing expense? Right? Is it going to be helping a customer, remediating some pain point? Nobody in business wants to swap out X for Y with no real benefit for it. It doesn't make a ton of sense. We had this same problem. We're a very forward company at Curantis. We had something a month ago that was even a little too forward for us. And it was a great idea, but the cost of getting the rest of the organization up to speed and understand it wasn't worth it. The investment was too high. And I think when you quantify that as an engineer, or as an architect, or as a C-level or a mid-level leader, you've got to be able to quantify that impact.
Yeah. One of the things that stands in the way from some of those ideas taking flight has to do with the culture of the organization. So there's kind of maybe 3 levels of the culture of an organization on their technology readiness. One is like they're very siloed within their own teams or departments. So it's marketing's got a bunch of ideas, finance has a bunch of ideas, sales has a bunch of ideas, but they're not kind of stepping back and viewing the business end to end. The next level of maturity comes when they can actually start thinking of the business as an interconnected kind of ecosystem end to end. And that difference between those two things is, if you have an idea that's going to impact it end to end, you have to be able to go get that support of those different groups. And then the third orientation is more of an external orientation, where let's stop thinking about us internally and let's start looking out at our competitors and our market, and how can this feature change that? And so oftentimes companies aren't mature in those 3 different areas. They're either very department focused or just internally ecosystem focused, and haven't kind of graduated to this external market focus. And there's no easy answer to how you change and mature that for a company, but it comes from education, time, showing that value, and really understanding the business.
We tend to treat innovation the same way as feature development, right? So the same business case and pitch runs through the same funnel. We didn't always do this because we had a bunch of stuff that was really cool, but it served no purpose. And guess what? It's sitting in a code repo somewhere and nobody's actually using it. And so putting discipline around that process, I think adds different perspectives, right? So even if a business person doesn't understand the latest cool, new, hip, whatever, everybody understands value. Everybody understands customer impact. And so if you can't, even from a business person, if you can't sell an engineer on why we should go do something, guess what? You're probably not going to get the best out of that engineer either. And so it works both ways, at least from my experience, that and sending it through a single funnel at some level is good from a government standpoint.
Steph, is it different at Ericsson, your experience? Sometimes manufacturer of gear, not just, but you are, and software. Like, is the cool factor an issue? As just how your talent brings forward new ideas? Anything unique in your experience there?
Yeah, I mean, we have a saying, it's imagine possible. We have over 60,000 patents, and we reinvest, I believe, 19% of our profits into R&D. So we very much embrace that culture. I would say what the challenge is to it is probably a mindset shift. When you have engineers doing things the way they've been doing them for the last 20 years, that is a barrier, right? Especially when you get into emerging tech like AI. A lot of people want to build it first, automate later. And that's what we're faced with this challenge now, whereas you have to build that with AI, with automation in mind, ingrained into you. And we're not there yet. So I would say that's probably the biggest challenge, is a mindset shift.
I don't know what the big deal is, because we just built the cloud and just put it all there, and it was all great, right? And cheaper. Faster, cheaper,
better.
no big deal, right?
And I think the other challenge too,
I nailed that, right? Did I nail that? Okay, good.
the other challenge too, I think it's kind of the reverse of what you guys were just saying, is you work with a bunch of brilliant technologists. It's not useful if you can't articulate what value that brings to the business. So I see a lot of good ideas, a lot of groundbreaking innovations. But if you can't articulate to your customers why that brings a monetary or cost-saving value, then it's not an idea that anyone wants to hear. So I think it's important now more than ever that technologists take a business mind as well. They have to always have that hat on. You're no longer just an engineer writing code in a back room.
I think we found a niche. Yeah.
So you've got to increase revenue, decrease costs, improve security, improve time to market. What did I miss?
All at the same time.
What's the big deal?
Yeah, no big deal,
go.
right? But I think the point. The point there is that if that's the part of everyone's culture, you've got it. Whether you're entry level or C level, it doesn't matter. Is that fair?
It's fair.
All right. Yeah. So let's kind of get into suggestions for recommendations for the coming year. What what leadership advice would you give to Let's start with coming into the market. Maybe we've got students here, entry level people here. What kind of advice can you give them? Steph, you want to, or Ben, whoever's ready to go.
Yeah. So for entry level people coming in, I would say find mentors. Be purposeful with it. Ask people to be your mentor, to give you guidance. These people who you meet as colleagues, who you work on projects with, they've seen a lot, and they will help guide you through your career. I couldn't be where I am without the many mentors I still have. So make purposeful connections with people and keep up with them.
I think understanding, when you're coming into a business, understanding actually what that business does, beyond just your job. You have a job, you're coming in there to do something, but how does that fit into the overall vision and narrative of how that company makes money? And how can I actually, in my role, help the company be more successful?
Yeah, I've got three. So, first off, you're new, right? You're learning. You've got some good skills. You went to college, or you've picked them up on the side, or you're interested in doing it. Come in, learn, find a way to be useful and valuable really early on. I think it's really important that you're going to learn things in those first few years that you didn't learn wherever you picked up your skills, or if you're changing careers. It is a completely different skill. The other one is community. I'm real big on community. Find people that are like you, that want to do things similar to you, and then find diverse opinions of that. Whether it's you want to be in AWS, find the AWS user group. If you're into, I don't know, .NET, there's .NET user groups. Find whatever it is that you're into and other people that are passionate about that. And then you're going to find that you're going to grow faster. Seniors and principals and leads, they will spend time with you, but it is going to be easier for you to grow in a pod of people sometimes than it is. The last one, and I didn't realize this until about 18 months ago, content. I heard somebody say something, creating content in public is like interviewing at scale. And I think that's really profound. Taylor said that, yes. Yeah, you know who it is, my Corba friend. And so what that basically does, so if somebody comes to me with a new grad or even like 15, 20 years, if they've got a GitHub repo with tons of samples, they've written articles, they've contributed to Stack Overflow, right? All those things are like a public resume. And I think in the absence of having, I'll tell you real quick, I hired a guy this year on a Legend of Zelda prototype he built on a private repo that he had done. And I asked him,
Did we just switch
I said,
to gaming? Is
yes,
that what
gaming. And I asked him, I said, how are you not employed? And he said, nobody will give me a chance because I have no experience. And I said, you're a diamond in the rough, you're hired. Come on. And he started within a month. And it was because he had a public presence and was willing to open himself up.
Yeah, that is really cool.
And his app was cool too.
Yeah, that is cool. I kind of come more from a culture and team perspective. One of the most important things is not just the technical knowledge and the engineering expertise that the person brings, but what type of attitude are they bringing to the team? And so, yeah, you can make or break a team. You can make or break a group just based upon that attitude. Are they positive? Are they humble? Are they willing to work hard? When things go bad, are they pointing fingers, or are they just they were just working hard to kind of fix the problem? And that is a huge difference to us.
I know I'm not a panelist. I'm just the moderator. I'm just a lowly moderator,
just a
but
moderator,
I am
yeah.
passionate about this topic.
Yes.
If you're new, if you're coming into the market, be that person people want to go to for questions or answers. It doesn't matter. Everyone's touched on it. Get connected to the community that you're working in, and you will be loved and appreciated, and that goes a long way. So be that person. Okay, so we talked about entry level. Let's talk about at the C level. So now you all have permission to influence and implore every C level that in the world. What do we need to tell them to do to care about their people and innovate all these technologies? What are we going to tell them to do?
Yeah.
Someone in the audience, for those online, someone said embrace risk.
Yeah, my mind was going, I've been beating this drum around progress, not perfection. And so stop trying to make it perfect. Stop expecting people to bring you something perfect. And if we're making progress, even if we failed and we learned something, that is valuable. And so I think that is an attitude that's newer, maybe, or is being embraced more. Because frankly, at certain levels of a company, when there's millions of dollars invested and quarterly profits on the line and things like that, embracing risk is hard. But I think people are really starting to understand that if you have this more humble growth mindset where it's about progress, not perfection, that will lead to long-term success.
Yeah, I was going to say, be a leader that embraces bad news, right? If your people aren't bringing you bad news, you don't have trust. Because bad news is happening whether you like it or not. And it goes hand in hand with embracing the failure, right? Embracing risk, leaning into it. The other thing I would say is that everybody's already stretched. These are interesting times as you started at the very beginning.
And no one's had to stretch at all during this session, so that's great. They must be really into it.
There's a humility aspect to it. There is a leaning into this intimacy idea. And I'm not saying all the way down to the very bottom of your organization all the time, but I know from being an engineer and being on Scrum teams and working on 60-hour weeks that felt like 100 hours, right? Whipping me harder was not going to get more effort, but showing up when things were tough, that was endearing, and that intimacy is important.
The beatings will continue until morale improves.
I know where that comes
really
from.
The right way to go. Okay. See, it wasn't just me. All right, Steph.
Is it on? I would say, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So we have a few values that we go by at Ericsson, but one of them is called speak up. And it's not the, see something, say something. It's challenge each other. You can be in a room full of smart people. You can challenge your boss. We listened to an exec at a customer, from a customer recently, and he said the hardest part is the higher up you get in the company, the less people challenge you and they tell you what you want to hear. And you don't grow that way. So I'd say speak up, challenge each other, respectfully, of course, but that's how new ideas and innovation is bred, when you're challenging the smartest people who are in the room with you. So surround yourself with those people.
Earlier when we were networking, I kind of mentioned to John back there, who I just met, about some leadership books. One is called 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. If you haven't read that one, absolutely love it. But there's a concept in there about mining for conflict, about having healthy conflict. And to your point, like, first you have to have trust, and then with trust comes this ability to sort of push back on each other and have conflict and talk about stuff.
So wrapping that section up, is fail fast, fail often? Is that still a thing? We're allowed to do that?
Yeah, I don't say it that way, but yeah,
Let's
absolutely.
get away. I'd say get away from this. There's bad news. We learned something, right?
Well, I mean, isn't that the heart of Agile, right? That we're iterating.
Right.
We're constantly iterating. And whether you're in a traditional IT shop that has internal customers, or whether you're pushing software that goes to millions of people in networks, or whether you're trying to help a patient, right? It doesn't matter. We're iterating, and it's a team sport.
Yep.
All right, we do need to move. I'm getting the look, right? So we need to move on. Q&A from the room. We're happy to take questions. Do you? Okay.
All right. Yeah, put your hands up, and anyone in the virtual audience, if you have questions, we'll try to get to those as well.
Thank you. I have a question for Benjamin. You had made a comment which kind of stuck with me. You said generative AI is not, or healthcare space is not yet ready for generative AI, or something along those lines. I could think of a number of advantages and disadvantages, but I want to know what your perspective is on that.
Yeah. So in my space particularly, and so when I say that, I mean limited to our software. There's tons of. I was at Amazon reInvent this fall and saw lots of really cool uses of generative AI in healthcare. In our space, the traditional predictive, suggestive data classification, those types of algorithms are much more useful and much more well adopted. Our clinicians are not as focused on generating patient notes, right? Having to double check those sorts of things. But if I can stratify a patient population that identifies the sickest of the sick, that allows them to then schedule differently, right? And manage those resources, I'm going to get a lot more bang for my buck from a product than fumbling through trying to create a note that a nurse is going to give me a thumbs up on. Now, I do think that there's some pieces in there that we could leverage some other parts that might help from a data quality. As a nurse is documenting, there's lots of AI we could use that they could help improve that. But generative for us in the hospice space is still probably a little bit ahead of the tech, and the skills are probably a little further than where we need them, but not as far as we need to. It's a great question.
All right, got a hand over here.
Hello. Yeah. First of all, thank you guys for sharing your erudite experience. It's really lovely to be here with all of you. My question is to Mr. Benjamin. Sir, may I? Yeah. Pertaining to generative AI, normally like we have these auto-regressive models that you just said about, and we have this auto-sequential, auto-encoding models. Okay. We have different layers and optimizers going on, constantly updating the weights for parameters. Now, the data is rapidly increasing. It's in exabytes. The trend sooner or later would be terabytes in exabytes. So I would like to know how it's going to, take care of this storage that's really going to upgrade to a huge amount,
Yeah, it's a really good question. So
thank you.
We are 100% hosted in Amazon, right? So I don't have physical devices anywhere. They're somewhere out in the cloud. And so what we do with it is a couple of the tools that we use. Obviously, S3 is a huge place that we store data. S3 is, I think, 7 nines of available, I think if I'm not mistaken, as well as giving us intelligent tiering around storage that we can offload and put to cold storage if we want to. We're also using a tool called Amazon Health Lake. Health Lake is exabyte scale patient data store. So we're betting heavy on maintaining our data assets in those well-proven environments in Amazon. And so I don't know what I would do if I was trying to manage that with a traditional storage setup. So our bets have been more on how can we innovate around that and let Amazon take care of, if you listen to them, 85% of undifferentiated heavy lifting. So that's heavy lifting for us. Go ahead, follow up.
Yeah, thanks for that insight. But I do know, like Amazon, AWS, they're having their Azure, auto scaling up modes, RDS and all. But there's a limit to the storage, right? The way the data is going on, I mean, I know whether it's going to really cater for that amount.
So the things that we're running any kind of models or any kind of algorithms on are not stored in like traditional RDS. So we're not using, like I said, we're mostly 100% actually based on S3 and really distributed file systems that we can take advantage of those big stores. So I don't have to worry about trying to scale up RDS. And we definitely don't do it in DynamoDB.
I would say what we ought to be concerned about is what if one day you want to move it somewhere else?
That's a
really interesting one. Then you have a whole nother kind of problem and challenge. So I like planting that seed with people because the concept of multi-cloud is, I believe, something that we need to be thinking about, and people don't think about it. Not really.
To his point, exactly. So if you're taking it out of Amazon, there are egress charges that are seen. If you guys saw it, Google just announced that they were going to have zero egress.
Oh, it's all fun and games till you want to move your data. Then, yeah.
Hey, y'all. Hey, John, how are you? Good. Number one, thank you for promotion. I'm asking this question with a premium beer in my hand. This is excellent. This has been a great time.
Good one.
You can't say that on the internet.
So, question for John. So, number one, I am a Stride alumni. McCarthy Associates is my first job. That's my first boss. He hired me 18 years ago. Question for you. In 18 years, I can say one thing that has not improved has been the human experience of just hiring, okay? Yeah. One of the things that you mentioned being a CIO of a giant recruiting company was efficiency. Yeah. To me, that's almost kind of a red flag, okay? Like, I know I've been able to start my own recruiting company because I've addressed those efficiencies, and I really come across it as a personal level. Yeah. You have a massive responsibility applying AI to make sure everybody makes more money, but make sure that candidates are less ghosted and actually treated like humans. How are you going to do that, man?
Yeah. That's worthy of an applause. So give him an applause. Yeah. So this is interesting. Our clients come to us and they want us to help them find the absolute best person. And so we do, we owe it to them to be able to look across a wide population as much as possible. But on the flip side, everybody sitting in this room is also a client of Motion, right? Our job is to offer folks in this room choices on different types of roles. So that is the hardest thing to balance, is how do we balance this efficiency but not lose sight of the human side? For us, it kind of goes back to the people in our offices and our branches, right? Their job is to make a personal connection, is to get to know you really well and what you want and what you're good at. The tools that we put in place, we don't want them to replace a recruiter or replace a career coach, somebody that gets to know the people looking for a job. We want it to make them more efficient. We want to get rid of the stuff that's not about a relationship and take that away from them. And so if it's searching a database or crafting an email to ask if someone's interested in a job based upon a job description, we want to make those things go faster. We don't want to turn it into you're interacting with a chatbot. Or we're not looking at a resume because it doesn't have. That's right. Yeah, and we struggle with that, right? Like bulk emails or bulk texts. What's the open rate on that? And how do we make those personal and show that we really do value the people we're reaching out to and that they're not just a number. So it is, I mean, I think with all technology, it's a constant struggle on how do you keep us from losing the human side of all of it. So I don't have a perfect answer, but it is something we're always thinking about. And nice.
Right? That's why I feel like it's human that I can't actually ever accurately get a CAPTCHA thing right the first time. You know what I mean? How many stoplights or bicycles there are? So that's my problem. All right, I think we have another question.
Yes, as Will's first boss 18 years ago.
It's your fault.
It is my fault. I raised the monster. No, in all seriousness, I just want to thank y'all for being up here and talking about AI. But one of the biggest concerns that I hear from managers, directors, people looking for jobs, is AI going to replace me? Is AI going to replace my coding ability? My answer to them, it's AI is, there's a human behind it. Like, there's intelligent design behind it. However, I would like to know from y'all what you think about the future of AI. Will it replace engineers, development, design? I don't think it will, but that is the most common question I get as a recruiter, as a individual in the industry trying to place these professionals. What is your opinion? This is for the entire panel, not Benjamin or just everybody. I'm curious to hear what all of you all have to say.
So this one's really personal to me because I was in VS Code this afternoon, actually working on some code, and I was using an Code Whisperer, which is a code generation tool. So my feeling is this. I don't believe that the software development experience is 100% computer science. There is an art to building software that needs to be shipped to a customer. I don't know that you can replace the human experience and a human's ability to relate to other people, to empathize with other people in order to build something that's meaningful to another user. So fundamentally, I don't believe that we're replaced as programmers. Second to that, I do believe that AI can be used as a tool. So back to my original, if I was chopping down trees with an axe, that's not nearly as efficient as a chainsaw, right? So for me personally, I was using it this afternoon to generate some infrastructure as code tooling. Why would I want to write 500 lines of code that I'm probably going to get wrong when I can have software do it, and then I can go back and check it. So what I would tell people is go learn the tools. Don't shy away. You know, I remember Skynet. I watched Terminator. Like, that's not where things are at the moment. Maybe they get there in 20 years, and oh, yes, they are. I'll be on a beach somewhere, so it won't matter. But I would lean into it. And for entry-level people, I've heard this argument a lot. I hear entry-level people are going to be replaced by automation and AI. No. So go learn that tool, right? Learn how to leverage it to accelerate your career and your experience. Because again, a computer's not going to replace all the individual emotions and feelings in this room.
Yeah, I mean, to add on to that, that's exactly right. We were talking about this because we figured this question would come up at the back before, and we were like, it's kind of like how email was going to destroy the telephone industry, right? It's a tool. A couple years ago, we weren't using Zoom and Teams, and now that's all we use. I mean, it evolves, and your brain evolves with it as well. If you effectively use those tools, you become more effective yourself. You have time to critically think. For me, one of my favorite books is by Stephen Kotler, and it's Intrinsic Motivation. And it's how to tap into the dopamine in your brain and really get the most out of yourself, right? And one of the rules in that book that scares me is you need 90 minutes per day of introspection, downtime, uninterrupted. And I don't know about you, but we're meeting, end, meeting, start, meeting, end, meeting, start. If there's tools to make us more effective, whether you're a coder or whether you're using it in your everyday life, I mean, I'm here for it. I think we'll evolve just as the tools evolve.
We talk about this on our team a lot. I think AI is not going to replace the people on the team, but people on the team who don't use AI will probably get replaced.
And so, but to your point, embracing the tools is really important. I think in the long term, though, there's a human element that we're all not going to want to lose. And I just think that's an important part of it, that AI, I don't think we'll let it replace that.
I'm a little more gloom and doom. It's part of my charm.
The wages of cybercrime.
That's right. So interesting, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, just dropped an article at the end of last month about AI and its impact on global jobs, global markets in general. According to the IMF, not saying they're the best measure of this, but they said that 40% of all jobs worldwide will be affected by AI, right? So, but to the points that we've heard here, it doesn't mean that it's going to eliminate jobs, but it is going to. And I led all this with my my go-to about innovation, creating troughs of despair in technology and business, and I mean that's a thing. Anytime you introduce innovation in, you create the trough, right? And so it's a matter of how we navigate across that. And what's different, I'm sorry, I'm on my soapbox now, but what's different about this space is it's that many jobs or that many roles being impacted simultaneously. And if you compared that, to other innovation changes, it's a little higher, right? So that's why we really need to keep our eye on the ball. As technologists, leaders, whatever, we've got to pay attention to where we fit in, to John's point about it may not eliminate your job unless you're not involved with it at all, right? So just heads up, don't take it lightly. Don't just whistle past the tech graveyard and think it's not going to affect you. It might, right? So that's my hot sports opinion on that. And I'm going to look to leadership here. We
have time for another question or two. Are there any others?
Best dressed in the room. Yes. Oh, you got to get yellow jacket before. Yes.
I'm just wondering how much energy are you all putting toward like policies or guardrails to prevent the misuse or misapplication of AI?
Yeah. So I mean, we're a small software company, less than 100 people. We don't have tons of guardrails on, we do just enough guardrails in order to stay efficient and effective and keep bureaucracy out of the mix. But we do, we've got policies around using like Zoom's AI chat logger, right? We're not pulling code from public domains, right? So a lot of at least the promise of the AWS tooling is how they're taking care and treating your data, not sandboxing it, right? We've got a lot of IP that we have wrapped up, so I don't want people dumping problems out into ChatGPT who says they don't use their data, but that's definitely there. So it depends. It's enough governance to keep us efficient, but back to the whole culture thing, people are asking, is this okay? Am I allowed to use this? And we've had a few case-by-case examples, but for the most part, we've tried to stay as nimble as we can.
I mean, we're a big HR company, so our biggest focus is just protecting the personal information of the people that come to work with us. And so keeping the AI tools away from that data is our biggest focus from a security perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think NIST just put out today that they opened a committee on AI safety, which I think is great and important. I think it's all about explainability and transparency. You need to be able to, anyone actually needs to be able to understand what the behavior and how that machine learning is happening to result in that behavior. I think one of the biggest dangers and problems that data scientists are trying to figure out is to ensure that the data coming in is safe and that it isn't skewed towards a certain output, creating AI bias, which isn't an easy problem to solve. So I think guardrails and governance with any new IT or emerging tech is always critical.
I'm actually just curious, we're talking a lot about AI. In the room, who used AI today in their job? Better question, who didn't? I bet you did, and you didn't even know it. But yeah.
I love the question. I love the question though that you asked because I'm a policy nerd, right? And one thing that I'm going to give you a little paradigm shift on this, right? In the past, you're sitting in front of the auditors, right? Who's sat in front of a tech audit before? Anybody? All right. It's not pretty and I hated it until I just embraced it, right? But that's where we're checking boxes and ticking and tying off policy for things that are generally speaking tech-oriented. And what you're going to find is going to happen over the next 10 years is most of the policy that we're managing is going to be actually created and generated by our end users, right? And it's going to happen, right? It's going to happen through an AI engine, right? So we've got to rethink how we create and manage and attest to policies that are created by our end users and managed through an AI interface. So that's
I think it'll be interesting because you see it already in digital content that it's tagging and making sure that you know where stuff came from. The only way we're catching, I'm thinking about the software side of it, is pull requests, peer reviews. An interesting thought back to your traceability and how are we going to know that code was generated from AI is going to be quality code that can go into production, and how do we tag that and use and manage and govern that? I think is going to be a real challenge and a problem that it's almost like Stack Overflow on steroids at some level. And if you've ever had a defect in production that you could Google and find the article that the developer copy and pasted the Stack Overflow code, AI will, that's a real risk for a software shop to pay attention to.
All right, we're going to take a question from our virtual audience, and then we'll hand it off to you after that. Okay. Pedro is wondering, if data is so important for AI, why are we seeing companies not investing enough in their data departments and are actually laying off data leadership positions?
Go ahead, Ben.
Go ahead.
If you could speak for everyone, that'd be great.
This is totally opinion at this point. This is not. I think a lot of companies don't treat data and the data science and the data. Data is it's a product at some level, and the output of that data is definitely a product. And I think a lot of times companies treat that data as, well, it's just a commodity, or it's not something that's super valuable. I can generate it again, or the X, Y, and Z. I don't think companies spend enough energy and dollars and care into the people and the quality of what they're using. They think they can do more with less.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's not valuing data. It should be one of the areas where you have the most investment, the most money, the most headcount is in and around data. And I think it's just an education to the people making the hiring and firing and budget decisions and profitability decisions, understanding that, no, if you want to innovate and you want to take advantage of AI in the future and you want to not get left behind, this is the area you need to invest in.
The message of the C-suite is, if you want to take advantage of AI, your data strategy can't blow, right? And that's the deal, right? And so that it's gonna instilling a little fear and motivation into them that you want all the benefits of AI. You better put some effort.
We were talking about this a little earlier. 20 years ago, we didn't have internet scale, right? There weren't systems that were generating hundreds of millions of requests a second. That just wasn't out there. Data is coming at a faster pace than it ever has, and it's only going to get faster. So if you don't set that strategy now, you're going to be even more exponentially behind in 6 months as if you'd have started today. It's going to be worse.
And I've got a cyber bias, right? And I would say that the data in that space, anyway, isn't necessarily coming any faster. We've just been ignoring it all, right? If anybody in here work in the SOC or involved with security operations centers, how much data is just sitting on the floor, being ignored, right? Because I just can't get to it all. And I'm sure that that's true in other Steph, network. Data that you can't get to.
Yeah, and I mean, I would think back to the question of getting rid of those data is those are the people who need AI the most, right? Is processing all that data to make impactful and insightful business decisions. Data on its own just sat there is worth nothing until it's processed through these.
All right, I think we're going to wrap up with a final question from our audience.
We're grateful being alive after the pandemic and being in the current situations of the war. So I have two questions. One is to John regarding the PS. How do you balance it, the ratio and the white space in the current scenario? And the question to Stephanie, who is the great leader? Is it a woman or a man?
Oh. Can you repeat the first question? I'm not sure.
How do you balance the white space and the ratio in between the current situations? White space means the job loss and threshold, and the management and the finance, they really have minimum ratio to be catch up the finances.
Yeah.
So how do you balance with the white space, which is not billable, but people are there, and there's a ratio.
I go with your second question. Who's a better leader, a man or a woman?
No, the second question I was going for, Stephanie.
Was that it? Was that your
Yes.
question? Yeah. Was that the second question for real?
Yes. Who is the great leader? Is it a woman or a man?
Woman, because they typically have more empathy. And leadership is all about empathy and caring about people. And I'll talk to you afterwards about your first question, because you're going to have to educate me.
Did you want to answer the highly volatile question about men versus?
So as co-chair in my volunteer time of Women of Ericsson, a 900-woman organization, neither's better. It's all about allyship, regardless of either way. A ton of men are my mentors in my career. I would say the important thing is diverse teams, regardless of gender, is having diversity of experiences, diversity of thought. That's how you challenge each other and innovate, is everyone's different experiences. So the answer is neither. It's the culmination of everyone.
All right, thanks to the panel, by the way. Fantastic. Round of applause for the panel, please. Thank you. Thanks to Tech in Motion. I led with the Chinese blessing curse, and it was one of three. All right, so I want to leave you with this. The other two, right? May you be recognized by powerful people, and may you get what you wish for. So, thank you guys for being here. Really appreciate you.